Okay, so now let's move on to uh, introduction really to this case to ensure that we have a full understanding of it. Now, I should warn you that the case has a very complicated background, so I'm really going to just cover the introduction at a high level, lest it become unwieldy and we will start to lose track of the factual background to it. So essentially what happened in this case, there was a company, Centenary Six Limited. They raised Section 212 proceedings under the Insolvency Act 1986, and they raised that against the joint liquidators of their subsidiary company, Centenary Holdings 3 Limited. And they were seeking damages from the joint liquidators of £22.3 million. And I'll come on to see why they were seeking damages. He further argued, as I've mentioned earlier, this threshold, the real and substantial chance, that the pursuer was under an obligation to prove that, and the prospects of establishing a breach of duty were little better than 50%. They argued that in terms of how the court should deal with it, the court would then have to evaluate the chance of success. And where there were a number of contingencies, which in this case there were, because would they get litigation funding? How would there be a surplus and so on? There were a number of issues. Where there's a number of contingencies, then the court should address the probability of each contingency and then multiply them in relation to, so each contingency would be multiplied, and that would give a percentage, which can then be applied to the loss. Another important point to remember in the assessment of the damages is that the court has to determine the value of the pursuer's loss claim at the date of the notional proof or trial, or indeed settlement. And the approach, that approach was adopted in the English case of Kitchen, which we've already considered, and it was followed in Scotland by the case of Kyle against P. Stormonth Darling, 1994, Scots Law Times 191.